تعالى يلا.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome everybody. We have some sessions finishing in the first plenary, so we will wait some more people coming, but we will begin. This is a session on an unusual topic for the Med Dialogues. We chose to speak a bit more on technology and the role of technology in the Mediterranean. And together with me, I have a distinguished panel to do so. Yasmin Al-Sharaf, your Director, FinTech Innovation Unit at the Central Bank of Bahrain. Francesco La Camera, Director General of the International Renewable Energy Agency. And Mohamed Soliman, Director of Strategic Technologies and Cybersecurity Program at the Middle East Institute. Thank you all for being here. I'll begin by you, Director General. I would, first of all, technologies is increasingly something about geopolitics, is increasingly something about US-China competition, and is increasingly something about a new strategic dependency. How fast is the energy transformation in terms of components, in terms of critical materials happening, and how the MENA countries are adopting to this new reality?
So this is one of the first occasions we also comment on what's happened in Baku.
Yes.
Just two weeks ago. And in the occasion of the pre-COP in Baku, we have presented our tracking report on where we are with the energy transition. So for who is really interested to have more data than I can provide you with today, you can just go to the website of ARENA and you will see the tracking report where all this information are there. But just to give the sense of where we are, last year we have been able to install 473 gigawatts of renewable energy. This 473 gigawatts was the 87% of the power installing capacity last year, and the remaining 13% was fossil fuels and nuclear and other. So a large part of the installing capacity was renewables. In more than 80% of the cases, renewables has been the cheapest option, also considering coal and other. But for being in line with the achievement of the goal of the Paris Agreement, the International Panel on Climate Change asked us to reduce by 2030 the CO2 emission by 43%. And this was the sense of the tripling that came last year in Dubai. So we are almost 4 terawatts on renewable installing capacity. We need to go 11.2 terawatts in 2030.
Okay.
This is the total installing capacity of renewables can allow renewables to be 65% of share in the energy system. And this will be the quantity of clean energy that may allow us to get the 43% of reduction of CO2 without creating disruption in the relation between supply and demand. The fact is that also if we have this record of new installed capacity last year, 473 gigawatts, that was 30% more than the years before. And for give you also the sense of the scale of this is 30% more of the total of all nuclear installed capacity in 70 years. Just to give the sense of 1 year, 70 years. But the fact is that if you want to get 11.2, we are more or less 4 terawatt. We should have installed more than 1 terawatt per year. So we had half of what needed. So this is where we are. We are in where the direction of travel is clear. All the data say that we are going to a new energy system that will be largely dominated by renewables, complemented by hydrogen, mainly green hydrogen, and the sustainable use of biomass. So the problem is not where we are going, but the speed and the scale of this transformation to be able to stay in a path that is coherent with the achievement of the Paris Agreement goal. Where is the Mediterranean on this? In the occasion of Baku, has been presented an initiative for having 1 terawatt of renewable energy in the Mediterranean by 2030. Okay. So contributing to this goal. We have also, as ARENA, we have been asked by the European Commission, together with OECD, OMEC, to try to understand what the more integration between Europe and North Africa can bring to the two sides of Mediterranean. And our numbers are a very good number. We have presented some of this preliminary results in Baku, and we will present a report in a few weeks from now. We are just waiting the Commission to be all in place. All in place. So the fact is that the potential is amazing. So we see that the 5 countries, including Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, and Tunisia, they have a renewable capacity of 2.3 terawatts that could be installed. We also have seen that the interconnectivity, enhanced connectivity between the 2 sides will bring a significant reduction in the price of the electricity, 20% for the European Union, 35% for North Africa. We can also, the levelized cost of electricity is going to go down until $28 per megawatt for solar PV, at 22 for megawatt for onshore wind. And also concerning hydrogen, we have been modeling a decrease in the cost up to $1.5 per kilogram. This study has been conducted utilizing the data that come from the Continental Plan for Africa, because we as ARENA, we have been modeling the Continental Plan for Africa, I think the 2063 plan. So we have all the doubts concerning the information, and our modeling, we are also analyzing and working for an outlook for the European Union. So this, at the end, the result is that having more integration between the 2 sides could be beneficial in terms of competitiveness. This is one of the magic words in the Draghi report, and could be also good in terms of job, GDP for both sides of the Mediterranean. So this is where more or less we are in global terms and considering the Mediterranean.
You gave us a huge amount of data that you processed in the quickest way possible. I'm not sure I processed all of them, but the message was very clear. So we're going in a very good speed on some things.
No. We are going in a very good direction. But not at the speed and the scale that is needed.
Okay, that's a very good sum up of your incredibly articulated answer. So thank you. But something that is, again, in this technology and revolution is, of course, massive investments. And now we see more and more going on tech firms by many MENA countries. And Mohammed, I come to you. We know that by just mentioning one, OpenAI has received money from sovereign funds. Many of the new technology actors that are global technology actors are receiving a lot of money from the Gulf especially, but also, let's say, from MENA countries. Can you help us in understanding how the tech ecosystem is positioning itself in the MENA world?
I mean, first of all, thank you for having us here, for your hospitality, for the team, for all the fun times we're having here in Rome. And also on behalf of the Middle East Institute, we're very happy to be partners with you on this. Let me start by giving a story about where the Gulf is today. This is a region that thinks that the future is nearby and they need to change the way they're thinking about their broader economic system, meaning they have to move beyond energy. I know you read this in Wall Street Journal and New York Times, but this is not just a slogan. This is basically the way that you see those sort of Gulf countries are thinking about the question of their economic future. So this means that they need to figure out a way to pivot away from energy. The main thing that they can build or they can invest in is technology. And technology is in a much more broader sense of the word. And I think they came up with a formula that's very important to decipher the sort of technology initiatives that they have been pursued. One, they have a very committed political leadership in Abu Dhabi, in Doha, in Riyadh, that understand that technology is at the forefront of moving forward. Two, and let's be frank here, there is the ability to deploy large sums of fiscal spending on ambitious initiatives. That this is basically what you talked about, like sovereign wealth funds spending in big tech companies and large language models. Three, and this is, I think, underappreciated, the question of energy. When people talk about AI, there's that assumption is basically something that's you don't really see, it's not really tangible. Actually, there are cables and there are data centers, and those infrastructure requires large sums of energy. That's a really big problem that we cannot really find a solution to. So when you read the news and New York Times and you figure out that Amazon and Google and Microsoft are buying nuclear reactors in the American on the American soil, you have to think why they're doing that. They're doing that because there's a need for energy for these sort of large language models, and the Gulf is they already have the energy, they have the infrastructure, they're willing to expand the electricity grid, and also to give you data for you to understand how tough the large language model energy question is. For you to do one ChatGPT query, you need 10 times the energy required for Google search. That's basically how significant the amount of energy that we need. I would say also on top of the political leadership, energy resources, and fiscal spending, also the question of access to talent is important right now. Yeah. One of the most important parts of the competition between the United States and China is that the United States is banning some engineers, some nationals, American nationals, to work on tech initiatives. That was never the case before. So there is a fight over talent, over engineers who can deliver value. The fifth one is also started to be increasingly more central to the conversation. Francesca and I had this conversation back in Brussels about export controls. Export controls are becoming the main driving force in tech decoupling that we're seeing. That means, are you able to get license for specific tech and large language models? I think so far the Gulf has been able to figure out a formula to get access to certain niche language models and able to come up with the specific deals with the US government on behalf of US tech, which is, we're going to discuss it more. So I would say those are the big 5 pillars of how the Gulf is thinking about about the tech ecosystem, about moving forward. But on the other side of the conversation is basically the tech community. This is a matter of business. Like, no one really goes to the Gulf because just the people are nice. Yes, the people are nice, but there's a business imperative for all these big tech companies moving to the Gulf. One, because the tech competition somehow created 2 blocks, or you can argue 2 to 3 blocks, but it depends on how India and other India adjacent countries fit in. So you need to figure out where you should put your tech, right? You cannot go near China. You cannot really go near China, Russia, adjacent countries. So you already have some restrictions there. And you also need to go to markets that are friendly to the American policymakers. But at the same time, there's a return on your investment. You are able as a business, as a tech company, which is at the end of the day is a business, to make a return on your investment there. 2, you also need to make sure that you have access to your money and your IP and your talent. So that means that you need to have some sort of a political relationship between Washington and this region that's very stable. And I think those metrics exist in the Gulf and has been extremely helpful to make the American tech companies operate in a much more easier sense in the Gulf. Will this continue in the future? Very likely. We can discuss more what are the challenges that we foresee, but I will stop here.
Thank you. You raised many points and you named 1, 2, 3. You have an engineer.
I'm an engineer.
I know. I always tell you you're an engineer, but it's very clear. I will come back on the energy needs because I think we can expand a bit on the Gulf and the energy production. But first, Yasmin, I'll come to you. You have a different background. You have your work in a central bank, and as you know, central banking right now is a very discussed topic. We have fintech, blockchain, crypto assets, everything that claims to reshape the banking system. Will it? We don't know. We're not here to discuss it now, but I think from your perspective, how regulators are acting in this new tech ecosystem, and if you can mention something that Bahrain is doing, would be interesting to know. What are you doing in this field?
Thank you very much, Francesco. And allow me first to thank you for hosting us. It's a great pleasure to be here. Maybe I'll start by picking up on your point, the role of central banks, right?
Yeah.
In this fast evolving world, our role is extremely challenging. So we have to be always one step ahead of the developments, specifically within the pace that technology is fast evolving and affecting financial services sector. Maybe I'll also touch upon what Mohammed said earlier. When we speak of the region, specifically within the Gulf region, the countries within the region are starting to look to diversify their economies away from oil and gas. And the governments within the region have already set the stage with very ambitious plans on diversification. And with that, emerging technology has been perceived as a source of growth. If we speak about Bahrain, like for instance, Bahrain has been one of the first countries in the region to successfully diversify our economy. So today, the financial services sector is considered the largest contributor to our GDP. And we strongly believe and we understand the transformative nature that technology has on financial services. It's a source of growth, and it can also directly affect the growth on GDP. And based on this, we have committed to focusing on financial technology fintech, on growing fintech, and we've made it as a priority in the Central Bank of Bahrain's financial sector development strategy. When we speak of emerging technologies and innovation, they also form one of the pillars of Bahrain's government's Economic Vision 2030 as well as 2050. Now, speaking of that, the role of regulators, I can summarize it.
Can I, before going
Sure.
to that, can you tell us a couple of points of what you're doing now practically to include fintech and crypto and these kind of things into your, plans for the future?
This is important. So as a regulator, we can't afford to just stop by without kind of introducing regulations that support those technologies that are forming, new business models. Consumer behavior, consumer demand is changing and evolving. Within the region, specifically when we speak of Bahrain's population, we have a growing young tech-savvy population, and therefore, it's a necessity that we provide the regulatory environment that will meet the demands of these new generations coming up. Now, the role of regulators is really twofold in this sphere. Our role is, first of all, to ensure systemic stability. And second of all, we also have an important role to create an enabling regulatory environment that supports competition and innovation without compromising financial integrity. Speaking again of the Central Bank of Bahrain, we have been pioneers in terms of supporting fintech and financial technologies. We have been early adopters of the regulatory sandbox concept. The regulatory sandbox I like to refer to it as a catalyst for innovation. It allows innovators to test their solutions in a well-controlled environment. It also is a way for those emerging business models to be introduced to the market in a well-calculated and a well-regulated manner. When we speak of crypto assets, because we like to refer to them as crypto assets rather than cryptocurrencies, we have been pioneers within the region. We have issued bespoke regulations on crypto assets back in 2019. Our regulations are very comprehensive. So they include standards on corporate governance, AML, CFT, risk requirements, whether it's technology, cybersecurity, as well as other risk requirements in place. And these regulations ensure the safe adoption of crypto assets. I think that those emerging technologies have a great implication on the GCC region, on the MENA region, by ensuring that we have strong regulations and legislations that will support those innovations. We can ensure that the region remains competitive. And again, picking up on what Mohammed said earlier, I think that the region is quite fertile. We're very ready for those innovations. As I mentioned earlier, governments are setting the stage with plans, strategies, legislations, and regulations. When we speak of the ICT infrastructure, we've got a number of data centers that have established offices within the region, such as Microsoft, Amazon, and the Kingdom of Bahrain. A lot of the telecom companies within the region have moved towards 5G. And then we've also got a very important element, which is the talent. Speaking of us in Bahrain, although Bahrain is small in size, but we are big on one thing, which is human talent. It is our biggest asset within the kingdom. Again, investments are also available. So all these elements work together to, I think, position the region as fertile and ready to compete on the global stage.
Thank you, Director General. I think one thing emerges in this discussion. We're speaking about crypto assets, innovation, AI, data centers, but all this, of course, requires a lot of energy. And it is clear that the Gulf, in particular, is trying to position itself as a hub for this because they are energy-rich economies for now. How do you see this picture, and how do you see, especially the future of this?
So, naturally, it seems logic that the artificial intelligence will require more energy so that we can have an increase in the demand of energy. In the same time, the use of artificial intelligence will rationalize many productive processes.
Okay.
So it can also contribute to a decrease in the demand of energy. Honestly, we don't know today exactly. We have not been able to modeling and coming with a clear picture of this, also because this could be different region by regions. But in principle, in some way, the increasing demand of energy could be compensated by the decreased demand on demand from the other side in the productive process. Just a few weeks ago, the Sultan Al-Jaber was the chair of COP28, launched an initiative on artificial intelligence in Abu Dhabi, inviting many partners to be part of the discussion. And naturally, this idea of how to feed the system with more energy came up. And I've also listened to you talking about Bezos and others that want to feed their system with a small nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
And on this, I have to say a few things.
Please.
First, that they launched this, but they are not close to any projects for the time being. Those projects will never be realized if they will be not the money of the taxpayer that will fall to them. If you want to read something on nuclear renewables, I suggest to digit on Google, putting my family name, La Camera, then nuclear and renewables. So you will have some data on the realities and the comparison between the two options. And there is also another piece of experience. I've been in China 3 weeks ago, and they brought me in a province called Qinghai. This is a province on the Tibet platform, where they are positioning all their computing capacity. So all the great company in China are their computing capacity.
But why so? The temperature? Oh.
No, for a very simple things, because they wish to feed their system with renewables. So they have together solar, they have wind, they have hydro, and they want to feed the system with renewables. This means that in case it will never happen, they will be able to feed their needs of energy at the cost of 1/6 of any kind of nuclear option in the world. So what I think has to be avoided also in this case, to make the mistake of the past. Now we say that we are all dependent on China. They build the solar panel, but the fact is that they started to make their choices
years ago,
and we didn't. And now we are paying the consequences. They are more competitive of us in a few areas. This could be another one, because they will be able to rationalize their system through renewables. So this is when we talk also about small nuclear reactor. The fact is there is no one working today in the world. In China, they install every week the same capacity of power capacity, electricity, that you can have for 3-4 small nuclear reactor. And for building this reactor, as not just as the battery of our home, it's 350, 400 megawatts. So it's not small at all. It will take more than 10 years. And the few cases where they started, they stopped it. So concerning artificial intelligence, we know that energy will be needed to feed the system. We don't know exactly what could be the difference between the increase and decrease in the demand side. But at the same time, we know that this request should be powered by renewables if you want to stay competitive in the market in the future.
So very interesting. You're saying you don't see a future of nuclear reactor-powered AI and technology and data centers, but you think, again, China is making the right choice in this field, saying, okay, renewables is the future to power this kind of revolution. Well, thank you. It's very interesting. But since we're speaking about renewables, I will go back to non-renewables, because two of the, let's say, the two biggest oil producers, Saudi Arabia and the US are, and Mohammed, I will ask you, they're also strengthening their ties not only on oil things, but also on technology, AI, and these kind of new things that, of course, are shaping our world and our way of working, living, etc. Can you do for us an assessment on how the US-Saudi relation is expanding or is getting more problematic, taking into consideration technology now?
It's actually an easy question. I think it's not only Saudi, I think Saudi and the broader Gulf. I think the story of the US Gulf relationships, if you have like a historical study of the relationship, how it evolved since the Brits left the region in the 70s, you will find the relationship is about three things: energy, security, defense deals, and that was the relationship, I would say, up until the mid-2000s, right after Iraq War. And then things slowly started to shift. The Gulf started to realize that the question or the idea of being fully dependent on energy might be not really a good strategy, and that might be going to end. And therefore, not only we need to redefine our economic system, we also need to redefine the relationship. And the more diverse the Gulf economies becomes, the more diverse the relationship with the United States will be. Meaning, and to give you an idea, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the president of the UAE, was in Washington, if I believe, either September or October.
Yeah, very recently.
And they had a joint press release. And that joint press release was, I would say, heavily on tech. I would say that was unthinkable. We're discussing AI, discussing space, and speaking of space, I want to give a shout out to our colleague Andrew Hanna, who wrote an excellent paper on space power and EU. But the very idea that you have a joint communique between the President of the United States and President of the UAE discussing AI infrastructure, data centers, applauding the G42 Microsoft deal, that was unthinkable. So this is on the Emirati side. On the Saudi side, you had the PIF Google partnership that we just announced in the PIF summit about the data centers. You have a space cooperation that's Saudi, UAE, and the United States when it comes to space capabilities. Now, and also, let's be frank here, the Saudi Arabia and UAE and the Gulf at large offer the United States a very unique opportunity, being able to work with US as an AI partner. Of course, we're trying to define what's an AI partner mean, but part of it is housing data centers, supporting certain large language models, and this is what you are seeing with these sort of new deals, Microsoft, Google, G42, and PIF. And this is going to be the new norm. And not only the new norm for the Gulf, it's also the new norm for how the United States is thinking about the question of tech allies and tech partners. We're all talking about tech cooperation, but what it does exactly mean on the technical level. I think our friends in the Gulf were smart enough to figure out what are the technicalities, right? We want a data center. We want a partnership on developing and co-owning large language models. Even on the question of 5G, and as you know, that was a very contentious question back during the first Trump administration about are you going to use Chinese 5G equipments or not? So the idea that the Gulf states invest in something called Open RAN initiative means that there's forward thinking on the question of how can we manage risk, but at the same time favor our own economic goals of diversification by 2030, mid 2030s. That's basically where we are right now. And I think UAE, Saudi Arabia, and then you're going to see this sort of new model of partnership between the Gulf and the US is spreading through the rest of the Gulf the longer we go in this journey.
But is it so a love story? Nothing's critical. I mean, you see only, I mean, that's a win-win collaboration with no weaknesses and no critical things.
Here's the thing that I tell policymakers and our friends who are working in the administration back in Washington. This is a different region and you have to figure out a way to deal with them for multiple ones. One, you don't really give them aid. You do not give them aid. So they have the financial means to acquire the capabilities that they need for their own development story. So that's number one. You have the right to be concerned about your own security. That's fair. So figure out a way to address your concerns and make sure that they are within your own ecosystem if you're interested in this sort of new partnership. So it is on us to figure out a new agile way of thinking about the rise of the rest, right? We cannot just go talk about multipolar environment and countries pursue their own interests, but at the end of the day, the only option we give them is us or them. It doesn't work that way, right? It's specifically in a moment when we're thinking about the question of technology today, just go through the data. Who is producing ships? It's in Taiwan. Who is producing ships? The actual physical boats. It's in Korea, it's in Japan. Who are the up-and-coming countries working on EV? It's China and actually surprisingly in Indonesia. So you need to figure out a way to give countries what they need in a way that also address the historical nature of your relationship with them and some of the security concerns. To your direct question, do we have frictions? Of course we do have frictions. I mean, think about all the leaks in the last year and a half about IP, about semiconductors, about ships, about what goes to China, what doesn't go to China, dual-use ships, legacy ships. That has been all over in the news. But you know why? Because we live in a very interconnected environment. And this is not a cliche or an essay in the New York Times. This is basically an environment that's very integrated. Think about your own phone, about your clothes, about where you are, your friends. This is basically the way that these sort of open integrated networks can be weaponized and can be used in a very different ways than intended. And I think that's also a risk that we should be able to accept, minimize it, but accept that there's going to be always a possibility.
Well, I love your positive attitude towards this, Mohammed. But so, Yasmin, I'll see if you have a positive attitude as well. I think, of course, you described as a very interesting environment in which crypto assets and fintech and many other things are developing within, of course, the global stage, but in the Gulf are taking a very good speed. Of course, this comes with some critical things and some major, let's say, threats, especially on cybersecurity. Could you help us in understanding what's the cybersecurity environment right now in Bahrain, especially? But if you can expand it to the Gulf, I'm afraid I didn't want to focus so much on the Gulf, but I'm happy to do it and just let us understand if what we perceive as Europeans as one of the major threats, which is cybersecurity, is something that you feel and you're working on it, and what are the major threats for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, Francesco, as the cyberspace is growing and continuing to evolve, with it, we're starting to see new financial risks starting to emerge. We're starting to see a rise in malicious actors and hackers and cyber criminals. I think some of the primary threats that come with cyber space include, number one, financial risks, ransomware, and then we've also got data breaches and identity theft. Given the global nature of the cyberspace, it's very important and imperative that governments, financial regulators, as well as technology companies come together, collaborate, work across national borders in order to put in place harmonized standards and security requirements. When we speak of us in Bahrain, cybersecurity is one of the areas that we take very seriously. We've within the central bank, we've incorporated requirements on cybersecurity risks across all our rulebooks, which are in line with global best standards. We've also established a national cybersecurity center within the Kingdom of Bahrain. And this center works very closely with financial institutions within the kingdom, as well as national partners as well. Now, speaking of the region, the Gulf region at large, again, within the Gulf region, we work very closely together. We have a unified goal, which is to enhance we conduct capacity building exercises as well, which is very important. And I think that, we have a very important role within the Gulf region, which is to ensure the resilience of the region, which will enable us as well to build our digital economies in a safe manner and to harness the opportunities and the economic benefits without compromising risk. I also think that, us as financial regulators, we have a very important role to play, which is to build bridges with, our friends and our partners across the globe to ensure that, there are harmonized, standardized, and kind of unified global standards when it comes to detecting threats and mitigating them as well.
Well, thank you, Director General. I would like to come back to you. In Europe, we have, we've had, let's say, in the last few years, some obsessions, I could say. One of these obsessions, and still is, we're working a lot at TSP about this, is critical materials. We know that in this de-risking strategy, we have been trying to adopt, of course, critical materials is at the center, but we are still trying to figure it out how to diversify this this source. How do you think let's say the Mediterranean, so North Africa, the Gulf, and the Middle East can play, or if can play a role in this diversification and de-risking strategy, especially for, let's say, Europeans?
So naturally, the critical mineral and the rare earths are how to say, a matter of concern when you look at the energy transition, because we will need more and more in the future. We at ARENA, we have been working on the geopolitics of a critical mineral. We have published a report on this, as we also publish a report on the geopolitics of the energy transition. And these are easily accessible for free from our website. So naturally, there is reason to be concerned about this, but there are all the instruments for, in our opinion, the critical mineral and rare earth will never be a bottleneck for the energy transition. First of all, because the rare earths are not rare, are abundant, they are everywhere.
Okay.
Minerals are everywhere. there is a problem of mining in a sustainable way. So the first element is trying to speed up the permitting for mining and having the mining do in a sustainable way, also in a social way, because sometimes mineral can be found very without drilling, but could be also done by hands. And in some region in Africa, they use the kids for doing this kind of practice. So this is another, so it should be sustainable from an environmental point of view and a social point of view. Also, there is the use of the circularity, because when we have a certain amount of mineral earth already sold in the markets, around 90% of those mineral earth could be recycled. So when that we reach a certain degrees of utilization that the system can provide to feed himself. The second is that the market is also through technologies is orienting in a way that you can use the mineral that are more available and so on. So we don't see really a bottleneck. Naturally, there must be policies behind it. There is also a question of avoiding dependency. Also here we have seen that China went to Africa already 20 years ago. It seems that no one has realized why China was there. So it's important that we start to invest in Africa and using investment in partnership. We, as Arena, we have a financial platform that is ready also to provide funding for the manufacturing in the country where the mineral are mined. But we still have difficulties to see companies that want to go and invest on this. This is very important to happen, because decentralize the supply chain is important for avoiding dependencies. The European Union come with some target for every country in the European Union to have a certain share of mineral earth already in their system. But Africa is so close to us. And working in Africa with the right investment, there are 5 industrial zones in Africa where the solar panel, blades, and batteries can be produced at lower cost than in China. We have seen also that I visited 2 months ago in Romania. They are able to work on storage and offering services, ancillary services to the storage that they can compete with the Chinese. So it's important that we put the industrial policy at the front line when they talk about this mineral earth. So it's a matter of concern, but this will never happen a bottleneck if we work on this.
Well, thank you. I think we touched on many things. We started from energy transition, saying we are going in the right direction, but not at the insufficient speed. We spoke about how sovereign funds are playing a role in this new technology revolution, how the fintech world and the crypto assets are shaping also central banks' regulations in the Gulf, how to power the AI revolution, not necessarily with the new and dreams of nuclear power reactors, but probably thanks to renewable energy. We spoke about cyber threats and US Gulf cooperation, and finally about critical materials. I think we covered a very broad range of topics, but I think you gave, and thank you for this, an idea of what is happening in this region that's I'm not sure how to call it. Yesterday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs told us that the enlarged Mediterranean goes till India, so I can say perhaps enlarged Mediterranean. But thank you for listening to this session. Please give a round of applause to our speakers. And please stay here. We have a fantastic panel on journalism and the power of narration, and coming next in a couple of minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Francesco, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
So